Hi friends, this is Sarah from Crafting and Relaxing. Welcome. Thank you so very much for joining me. This is some process video that I made for Smash Our Stash. Smash Our Stash is a collaboration. There was a video for that yesterday, and this month was free choice, so you just pick your own category. So I started digging through bins, boxes, envelopes on the counter of unfinished objects and Happy Mail things you had sent me, all sorts of things. I found some Crafting and Relaxing stickers right after I sent a bunch of Happy Mail. That's just how it goes, right? These striped paper things are scrap card bases that I've made where I prepped it, but then I never made it into a card. I make these typically when I'm traveling. So these are from my summer trips, and then they didn't go anywhere except in this bin. And then I'm just mixing and matching different things I have in Happy Mail. I got those Thanks Honeybee die cuts in Happy Mail from Tony, and I'm testing them out. That's a card that I made that I don't know why it was in this bin. You know how that goes. It happens. When I started this, I believed that the counter would get cleaner. That is not what happened, but I did finish some things. These are envelopes that you make out of 6x6 thinner paper. You could make them out of copy paper, any paper that you want. They're great to put in journals. They're fun to put Happy Mail stuff in. I think I was demoing or something. Clearly, they don't take very long. I did the scoring and then didn't trim out the stuff and glue them together. You could make them with single-sided paper. You could make them with little kids and construction paper, whatever you want to do. Envelopes are really fun to make if you haven't made envelopes. I don't even think it matters if they're a useful size. They're still fun to make, even the little tiny, tiny ones. So I'm just emptying that stuff out, and then I didn't decorate these, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them. Color-wise, they don't really work in the bird journals, but they work in every blue journal I make, so they will definitely get used somewhere. I'll probably just put them in my CD case where I keep my tags and ephemera. Hadn't really thought about that, but I think if I put them in there, they would get used probably quite quickly. So there we go. We have 2 done items. I looked at these, but then I realized I didn't really want to make summer cards right now just because they just get shuffled around all winter long. So I focused more on things that I thought would get used sooner and just some weird things. Those are ephemera pieces that go with a collection, and I bought them, trimmed them, and then put them somewhere where I'd never find them because there's chipboard too. These strips were from, I think they were in some bag that I got at that $10 sale in Olympia, Washington, where I got to fill a bag for $10 with paper crafting. And they're a long strip that says, "I'm so glad you're in my life," and repeats, and there's a spot to put a brad at each end. I'm not going to do that. So I trimmed them down just to use the sentiment that says, "I'm glad you're in my life," and then I threw away the ends. I wasn't concerned with those, and that gave me a bunch of them. Those blue swirls came in Happy Mail. Some of this stuff is stuff that I have fussy cut and thrown in. There's no category to this box on my left, this little white box, except it's not bird stuff. I had sorted through a bunch of stuff and put stuff in piles for my bird journals. Some of these things I'm fiddling with won't actually become cards. This card doesn't quite come to fruition. If you watch my channel, you know that when I craft, when I'm really having fun, I just go crazy. I start putting things together, planning things, and then I pivot and do something else. These stickers I had set out to use for Happy Mail and then forgot about them. So I decided to make this Earth Tony card into a fall card with different stickers and embellishments. Kathy had sent me a bunch of die cuts a while ago and I hadn't used them. This is really fun. If you have a mess or you have a bunch of stuff sitting out that you think doesn't match, try it. Have a great time. I did. I could have kept making cards this way for days. In fact, I might do some more today, but I'm supposed to be cleaning up for my friend to come. And then I decided, wouldn't it be fun if there were some embossed leaves behind there? Sure, no problem. So I got out the Versamark Dazzle pad that I inherited. I don't think you need to buy one of those. I would just get the regular Versamark. And then I put clear on it, and then I'm heat embossing it. So if you're not familiar with heat embossing, I have heat embossing like 101 videos on my channel. I don't do a lot of heat embossing, but for some reason this spoke to me. I wasn't sure if just stamping with Versamark would give enough tone on tone of the leaves, and I wanted them to show a bit. Then I missed a spot, so no problem, just patch it up. And I love autumn with the coffee cup. I like the cup because it's got that blue-gray. And I put a circle of paper behind it because this is a paper that's been embossed with an embossing folder. That wood grain is. And it's really textury, and I'm not sure about gluing stuff to those. I've commented before that embossing folders aren't really something I use. So I was impressed that I used these. I just remembered there's all those cute Joy ones. I didn't use those. There was so much stuff in that rectangle bin that we dug through at the beginning. I assumed I would go back to it multiple times, but this stuff kept me busy. When I fussy cut those tags, I left some odd colors on the other side, the tickets, so I had to trim that off. I should have covered the entire circle when I did the stamping so that I didn't have to decide how to arrange it and fuss with it. I just thought, well, it's not all going to show, so it doesn't matter. Then I'm just trimming it down. I don't know why. Maybe it wasn't straight. Maybe it wasn't a good size. And then inked the edges. I think this really made this card. I very seldom remember to ink things, but I inked the edges, and then watch when I layer it up. I just think it turned out really cool because I did that. So I'm going to put it on black because the wood grain has a bit of black in there, and I just thought it made it pop. Then I'm fiddling with that because it didn't glue down flat. No problem. If you're worried that things won't lay flat and so you don't use them, just get over it. Just put some glue in there and see what happens. I love that one. I love that embossing folder with the random circles. I don't know what they are. They have nothing to do with autumn. My friend Noni, of course, would have used a leaf embossing folder, but we're just rolling with it. I thought it needed a little something there because there weren't enough leaves, so I added that fall is here embellishment and then layered it on a cream card base. I have cream and white ones ready to go this time of year, and I prepped some recently. I really love how that turned out, and I think the inked edge made it. Then, we need a little something for the inside. About half the cards I made for Smash Our Stash, I put stuff on the inside. Washi, stickers, whatever. I try to remember to add something, but there's no rule. I was trying to use that tag, and I just couldn't make it work. Wilson is jingling and fiddling behind me. Sorry. There's a bit of a storm today, and he's just beside himself trying to control the universe. So he's been in and out barking. Those little black sentiments, in some places I layered them up just to add more interest, but other places I used them as a second sentiment and just let them be understated. I like, I'm so glad you're in my life. It goes with so many things. Friend, thank you. I don't know, Tuesdays. This one was the end off of a piece of paper, and it's about sewing or buttons. So I trimmed it down and I put it in my sewing themed kit so that if we ever get to that box, it's in there. I just didn't think it would get used on the counter, and I didn't want to throw it away. I'm still trying to make that tag work. These are embellishments I've never used. This friend one and I'm so glad you're in my life. I've never used these. I don't have experience with the sizes. That's what you miss in videos sometimes. If it's a stamp or an embellishment I've used a million times, I know what it layers with. Okay, I liked this, but I wanted that sentiment to pop out more, and I couldn't make it work that way. That's fun to put them on the strips like that for high contrast sometimes. just fiddling and having a great time. That's just an ugly piece of paper that was on the counter. I don't know why. I don't know what made me put that in the unfinished objects bin, but I did, I guess. I think it's a paper that I bought years ago for genealogy albums. It's a very, I don't know, neutral, earthy, goes with burgundy, goes with hunter green, goes with a lot of colors like that I used. And it goes nicely with black and whites and old photos. So I took that I'm So Glad You're in My Life and layered it way up. I was pretty impressed that I cut the flag decent. That's not really a strength I have. And I don't have a die that shape, so I get frustrated. I love this background. Again, I probably made it in a hotel room or on an airplane, and it was just bits of papers that I liked. Now, I wanted to put the friend at the end of the flag right there, but I didn't want to cover up the cute gold bird. I don't know if you really see it that well. So I could not put the friend there. As far as a layout, I think I would really like that on a different card, to have a flag like that and then a circle. But I just refused to cover up the gold bird. It was too cute. The speed in this video varies from like 3 times to 6 times. Sometimes when I'm doing the gluing, I speed things way up for you. What do you think of that one? Then these number things were in the embellishment pack with the clocks. I don't know. So I used some of them. I had a 6x6 piece of paper. I think one of you might have sent it to me in Happy Mail, and I loved it. And I cut all these tickets and stuff out of it. The ones at the edge, I cut them out and I kept them. So you might have thought it was a reject, but it turned out just a nice little interesting thing on the inside of a card. This is a stamped image of a postage stamp that's been sitting around and not getting used. And I think I stamped it out one day because I was like, I'm going to use those stamps. And it was when I was doing those sewing layered embellishments, like the butterfly in the upper right. I think I was fiddling with that. Some of these things you've seen in other videos, so I'm not going to tell you a lot about them. But if you have any questions, never hesitate to ask. I just don't like to go into too much detail and bore you with things. The reason I trim these scrap cards when you see them like this is because when you make things in hotel rooms or on planes, you don't have a nice big paper cutter. So they often have rough edges, things hanging off the edge. I probably made it with Dollar Tree children's safety scissors with the plastic ends. So I couldn't put a nice edge on it at the time. And that's fine. I don't have any problem doing it later. I love how this one turned out. When you take scraps of papers that you love and make a card with them, it's always going to make you happy. That one is a little crooked. If they're terribly crooked, you'll see me, I couldn't take it. So I just trimmed the black a little bit. Now it seems like it's straight. Black is so dominant and pulls your eye that you would notice. So if you just straighten that out a little bit, you're fine. Now I'm going to put my head in your way. There we go. That could use some enamel dots, some bling. It would be fine the way it is. You could put some stars around it, whatever. Then I was like, maybe I'll put the stars in there. Changing my mind so many times. That's what's fun though. You get to, right? These are the embellishments from that same pack. It says something on the back very specific. I think you'll see a different one where I use it. They were about, I don't know, sewing or clothespins or something weird. I liked the pattern side better. When you give me double-sided embellishments, you never know which side I'm going to use. I love the bike. The bike had to go on a card. I might add a sentiment to the bike later. I might just leave it the way it is. I get picky sometimes about my blues. There's like a violet blue, and then there's a blue with a touch of green. And a bunch of my sentiments were cut out of this really nice paper that Andrea picked up at Goodwill. But it's not a violet blue, and I just couldn't put the two together. So, I don't know. That's just my weirdness. So I took a peek in my die-cut Dollar Tree photo album, but then I decided that wasn't really what this is about anyway. Oh, I love that. It said, "You make my heart happy," but it's silver on white, and it just got washed out in this card. See, the thanks did not go with the tone of the bike. I didn't want anything to fight with the bike, so I left it. And I think that's okay. It's a fun bike. If you got this card in the mail, I don't think you would say, oh my gosh, there's no sentiment on the front. The other thing is, if you make cards like this where the front's really busy, so you just gave up and didn't put a sentiment, you can also have them in your stash and just stamp on the inside at the last minute. If you have a crisis and say you have an old woodblock stamp and you try and stamp happy birthday and it gets messed up, just stamp it on another piece of paper and trim around it, or use a die cut and glue it right in on the top of it. Never throw your card away. I'm tidying this one up. This one had jagged edges and stuff hanging off, so I definitely had to tidy that up. So it does lead to a lot of cutting in the video. Sorry. This blue paper was in a pile with those other striped papers you see up there on the left. It must have come in maybe in that $10 stuff. I don't know. It was still sitting on the counter and I thought, let's use it. I can't imagine that any of you guys sent that to me. Oh, those striped papers right there have the holes in them. I think those went with those black sentiments that I chopped up about being in my life. I'm trying to get the actual trash out of the way. And then I found some more and trimmed those. All kinds of stuff going on. And I know that not everyone is as messy as I am, but you could do this with just gathering stuff and putting it on the counter too. You could say, today I'm going to have blue, or today I'm going to use butterflies, or today I'm going to dig through that box of stuff that my friend gave me that I don't really know what's in there and use them. Right? You all have it. Admit it. Sorry, but those all need to be trimmed before you use them, or you'll end up with, because I make them when I travel, right? The supplies that get through TSA are not the same as what I have access to in my room. I love that polka dot paper with the big polka dots. I only had a tiny bit of it left, and that's from a card kit, I think from a class years ago. Just love it. And that blue paper really made it pop. Then I was struggling because I didn't want to cover up those polka dots. I did not think these cards through. You can tell, right? I didn't lay them out. I didn't say, okay, I know exactly what this is going to look like. If I liked something, I glued it down. What that does is it often leads to items that are further along in the unfinished object phase. Because honestly, I don't remember if we finished this card. I don't know that we do. Then I found this vellum piece and I was like, oh, I want to use that. And when I laid it on this, the sentiment popped better, right? It got washed out on white, so that just wasn't going to work. This card, look carefully at this card while I'm assembling it. It has bright green, kind of on the ugly side, paper. In my stash, I think it was like a Stampin' Up! Green paper from the 90s that I had a whole bunch of. It's okay for Christmas trees. I don't know. It's just not my favorite green ever. And I'm sorry, Andrea, not really a green lover. Sorry, Maria. I used it. It was a scrap. And when I make these scrap cards, I just chop up bits of paper and I don't really think a lot about the colors. There's no planning when I put the kit together before I go travel. I just say, oh, this is a scrap, and chop it down. And so sometimes I build them on crazy colors, but this is just an example of it does not matter. You do not have to like the background paper to like one of your scrap cards. I love that blue-gray paper with this one. Scrap cards, you can layer on top of so many different colors. You can build them on anything, and then you'd be amazed at how many different papers you can use as the next layer, that blue-gray, because there's so much color. Look at that. It's like I planned it. So that is from that cluster video that I made. It was Bonnie and Clyde's idea. I had a link to it, and she layers these things up and stitches them together. I think this card is adorable. Absolutely adorable. And again, I'm not going to put a sentiment or anything on it. If you wanted one, you could stamp one on the inside. This was, again, out of that bag of stuff that Kathy sent me. I stitched on that a while ago. Turns out we're not going to use it. I started to make an envelope. That envelope right there was an oops that I stamped over to cover it up. I started putting stuff in there that I thought would be better for journals. A little big for cards or not quite right. And I put that big thing that I had stitched on in there. We're going to straighten this one out, and then we're going to turn it into a card. This gorgeous shimmer paper was sitting here. I think one of you sent that to me in Happy Mail because I don't know how to obtain more of it. So I think you sent it to me. And it's like the perfect color for this card. Shimmer paper doesn't really get justice in videos because it's not blinding like glitter paper. But honestly, I like it better. It's never messy. It's thinner, easier to work with, and it's a little more understated. Now, I do like to die cut glitter paper, so maybe I don't like it better. I like it different. Using those swirls on the inside. Love them. Absolutely love that. Thank you to whoever sent that to me. Just cute, cute. Look at that with the bike. And I'm pretty sure it came with the bike, so the paper is a perfect match too. This one I thought it needed because I used the sentiment and the number 1 to glue down the vellum, and then I tried to dot the vellum. If you have trouble gluing vellum, just put embellishments over it. That's what the stars are doing. Look at the back of that green. Oh, it had writing on it, so it might have been from my cardstock sample book. It might not have been Stampin' Up. But did you see how bright it was? And it barely shows. And in fact, it kind of adds some interest with the brown, that green popping through. I'm just slowing it down so you can see it a little better. And then be careful when you're smoothing over your scrap cards, because honestly, I don't glue the edges super careful, so you don't want to catch them. That's why I slow down when I do it. I was thinking I'd use the back of that because it's such a neutral thing to make things pop, but then I flipped it over and it had that touch of green, and it goes so well with that paper. Oh my gosh. And then you can see how it just started coming together and evolving. That bluebell paper, do you think that's what those are? Flowers. Anyway, I think one of you Happy Mailed that to me. Again, I love it, and it was sitting around, and I thought, oh, I gotta use this. So putting all those together and just kind of repeating the colors and having a great time. Then I picked up these stars. I think Nancy might have sent these to me. They were definitely Happy Mail, and I was bound and determined to use this. So I trimmed around it, just kind of a loose fussy cut, and then layered it back there. If you love something, just use it. It'll work. Okay, I picked up this piece of purple paper, and then I realized it's a tab. One of you sent me like tabs for pages, so I set that aside in the journal envelope. Sometimes when I look at a shape, it doesn't click what it is. Fold it in half, silly. The joy was from Happy Mail. I don't know why I stopped at this moment and fussy cut it, but I was just inspired by it. And of course, it doesn't work with the thanks. I think the joy needs to go on a card with more white, because I'm probably going to be too lazy to cut out the middle of the J and the Y. I have a little knife I could do it with. I just don't see me doing it. The fabric scraps, again, they were sitting on the counter. I looked through the jar because I was trying to find like some pinkish tones to go with this card that I have set out. Didn't find anything. Then, are these tabs too? Happy Mail you sent me? I decided to put those in the journal book for later and test it out. Tiny bit of ribbon that I absolutely love. This is the kind of stuff I don't throw away. And it can get crazy. This black and white scrap card, it was ready to go. It just needed a little something. And it has touches of, it might be magenta. I'm not totally sure, but I'm calling it red. I went with it, made it work. There wasn't much pink in my stuff sitting around on the counter. I know you're surprised. So I had a little trouble making the pink stuff work, but those we could come back to in the spring or something. It's fine. Sorry, I got off the screen a little bit. I got out some double-sided tape and I'm trimming it down, and I'm going to put it on the back of the thanks because this is a 2-layer die. The back is easy to glue down. The thanks can be a little persnickety. And instead of dealing with the glue bottle, I just thought, I'm going to put some double-sided adhesive on the back of that. I usually die cut and forget that step. So I was pretty proud that I remembered. And I don't remember. This die was from Tuesday morning. I think it might be a Crafter's Companion one. And it's a double layer and it kind of embosses the top. It's a nice one. Find dies that you like size-wise. I say it over and over. I still buy them. You don't need every single thanks or thank you die, but just find one that you like. These 2-layer or 3-layer ones are great too, because you could just use the front, right? You don't have to use all the layers every time. So it gives you some variety in your card making. I use that second layer so that I can put it on 5 different pattern cardstocks like this, and it tones it down and lets the thanks stand out. If I had just put the black word on that card, you would have lost it. It just wouldn't be interesting. It wouldn't pop out. Oh, I had some problems there. That was not straight, and I usually give myself more space when I go to glue on a card base for that reason. I was so crooked it wasn't even going to go down onto the white. Then I decided to put the summer away because I'm not going to use summer right now. And we're doing just a little bit of tidy up here, which I know is hilarious coming from me, but trying to evaluate what do we have left? What do we want to use? I'm still trying to use that polka dot blue and white and trying to figure it out. This gray thank you was floating around on the counter, so we're trying to use that. Oops, there's some cute stuff that came in Happy Mail. I feel like when I have a long skinny sentiment, I just don't have the right die cut to lay on it. My flaggy taggy ones aren't long enough. My ovals aren't narrow and long enough. But I loved that circle, that floral blue circle, so I decided we had to use that. I just pick what inspires me and go for it. And lay it all out. I hope this voiceover works. I think this is my first one on a different computer. You'll have to let me know if there are problems or volume issues or whatever. Sometimes I get comments to turn up the volume. I liked the white circle behind the light blue, but it was a little too wide, and honestly, the point of this was not to go die cut another one. And then I just decided, no, the white didn't go with the card. That star is from a tissue box. I'm sure you've heard me talk about tissue boxes. I'm a big fan of them. I kind of loved this. When I set it down, every once in a while when you set something down, do you hear it? It's like, aha! I decided that those items needed to be together. I didn't clearly have a plan, but I wanted them together. I'm still trying the thank you, and not so much for this card, but down the road, I have that die. What do I layer it on? I loved when I put the sentiment down there that said, I'm glad you're in my life. I loved that with the thank you. I don't think I'd really thought about that so much before, but I didn't like it on that yellow and pale colored card. Black is a nice pop, but it needs a friend, and I didn't want to add black to that card. And I wear black and blue all the time, so if you think they don't go together, we have to talk. And so that's how this card came to be. I decided I wanted to use the I'm so glad you're in my life. I cut the cardstock big enough to make it all fit on there and then started fiddling. I don't always build cards around the same thing. It might be a sentiment I want to use. It might be an embellishment. It might be one patterned paper. Here, there was this scrap in that box. We're still working on that box of this paper that I loved, and I couldn't decide what it should be, so I made a balloon out of it. The balloon is not going to work on this card, but I turned that paper into something useful. I think. We'll see if I ever use the balloon. Then this is what happened. I found a red star sitting on the counter or in the box, and I only found one, so I only put one on there. In the Smash Our Stash video, you will see that this card has more on it. So I did find more items to add later, but that was literally my system. There's a little bit too much glue on there. I couldn't handle it, so I used my scissors to pick it off. This box has been added to for months, and it has items that don't go together. Right now I'm picking out 3-dimensional items like charms and stuff, and then the flowers. I'm going to admit to you, I love the flowers. I got them in Happy Mail and I'm hoarding them. So I don't want to use them on these cards. I'm thinking they might end up in one of my journals. I only have so many. These cards, sometimes when you make cards, are you like, I just want to use stuff up? Or do you have someone in mind? Or are you making cards that you think, oh, I want that to sit around my room for a while? I have different levels of cards that I make. And these cards are, let's get it done and see what happens. If you're using the blue butterfly paper that you've been hoarding from Graphic 45 for at least a year or more, you're probably going to be more careful with your projects. So this is a little bit freeing. A lot of the stuff I'm using, normal people might have thrown out. Those bright blue stars, again, those are from a tissue box. And I remembered to use my tweezers. I love the thanks moved down by that I'm so glad you're in my life. I have a tendency to put my sentiment in the center of my card. For me, that was a little different, and I was proud of me. I could have done this forever. I, right now, would rather be doing this than this voiceover. It was really fun, and the counter is a mess. So those of us, and I was one of you, who thought that this would help clean things up, oh, honey, we were wrong. All it did was I took the stuff and resorted it into different groups and different piles. But in the end, I'm going to have to pick it up and put it in a box. What do you think of this card? I love it. I absolutely love it. The stars are from Nancy. I can't remember who sent me that greenish handmade looking paper, but I don't know where it came from. So I think it came in Happy Mail. The stamp was from Craft Scraps. Gigi, she sent me those stamps a long time ago, and that's why I was bound and determined to finally use them. It's like an Alice in Wonderland set. I've got black and white ribbon. That little tiny piece of blue ribbon, somebody new to our Crafting and Relaxing family sent to me recently in Happy Mail. It was Lori, I think. I think it was in Lori's package. How cute is that? It's like I dug through the drawer and found it to go with this project. Also, I mixed stars and flowers, and I love it, and I think I should do that more often. There were a lot of weird layers, so I set the thing down to hold it and then left for the night. This is 2 or 3 nights worth of puttering. You can use your stamp blocks, your embossing machine, your phone, whatever to hold things down. This paper, I'm not sure which paper it was because it wasn't in an organized place, is really bright. Kind of loved it with this. It just made the whole crazy thing pop. I thought about trying to go black, but look at that in the end. That might be my second favorite card. Maybe it's my favorite. I don't know. That earth tone one with the crazy green in it, I really love how that one came together. I know. Me picking the browns. It's November. Cut me some slack. How cute is that? If you asked me to make a card with ribbon, fabric, stars, flowers, and a postage stamp, it might be a stretch, but I did it. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.